Okay, we are recording. It is week 3. You know what that means in the terms of a 5.5 class? It's midterm. This is the midterm. And that we have 3 more weeks to go. And it goes really, 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 really fast. Before you know it, it'll be over. That is September 14th. So that's really basically, as I said, this is the 21st. That's about 3 weeks away, except we end on a Friday. And so as I tell students that whenever they take these 5.5 classes, trust me, you got to stay on top of things because of the fact that the quarter goes so very, very, very fast. I am finishing up the week 1, because you didn't have a written assignment for week 1. Finishing up those, I think I did. I might have even finished up the discussion post. But anyway, I'll be discussing with you the things that we need to do. So let's get started. Let's get to, let me share. Okay. Here we are. Let's click share. Okay. All right. So anyway, I have at the top the information here about me, and you already know all of that, so I'm not going to go through there. I've already discussed all the information here. The one thing relevantly I want to point out to you is that this is week 3. We have 3 more lectures to go. Week 4 next week, then week 5, and then the week 6 lecture. You notice down here that they're at 6:30 Central Standard Time, roughly about an hour or so, sometime a little longer, and then I will give you a keyword at some point. And most of the time you can almost, well, you kind of can sort of figure out what the keyword is going to be, but I reveal it to you right near the end. But the topics are really what I use a lot, but then sometimes I use other things. You see I have archives of the lectures, which I also emailed to you for week 1, which was the open house. And that was a very lengthy session because of my explaining to you why my motto is adversity springboard to success. And then week 2 lecture, which took place last Tuesday, and there's an archive of that. So you can get that from there or either your email link. So now let's come straight down and let's take a look at our announcement for week 3. Policy and social trends, mental health, and criminal behavior. Chapters 3 and 4 of the textbook, and complete the activities, policy and social trends, drug use, abuse, addiction, and theories of addiction and drug identification activities. Your initial post due tonight, initial for social policies and trends by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Your reply post due tomorrow by 11:50. Not tomorrow. Your reply post due Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then you have 2 things. Your course project, Heroin and Crime, and then your quiz. And I'm going to talk about both of them. And actually, your quiz, you should be aware of, is actually like a midterm. Just remember what I told you before, that previously you had practice quizzes, and I said, you know, take those, use all those resources that are embedded in the course to help you to prepare. Weeks 2, we had them, weeks 1, and so, like I said, now we have a real quiz, as I should say, that counts, and then my motto. So let's take a look at the course calendar real quick. Okay, and today is the 21st, but here's our reading assignment that was for Monday. Our initial post, the live lecture, your reply post, your course project, which, you know, we're going to talk about that, and then your quiz, okay? And you'll notice what I said, that, okay, earlier here, when it comes to quizzes, wait a minute, I think, is this the one, that's the midterm quiz? Okay, I got to remember, I teach 3 classes. I think this course, yeah, you have a quiz next week as well. Let me take a look here just a minute. I want to just take a look at just for a minute. Oh, okay, the time quiz. Okay, so yeah, you have another time quiz that was last week and then the week before that. Okay. And then you have one that's coming up for this week, which is the time quiz. Okay, so it's not quite a midterm, but I think it's my other class that I teach. I teach business law, and I also am teaching Introduction to Criminal Law. I think that's where you have the other one, that you have a midterm. So anyway, just follow the schedule that we have here and make sure that you do the quiz. But here's what I was getting ready to say. Make sure that you do your quiz at the end of the week so that you will have gone through all the material. The PowerPoints that I sent you that will help you to prepare. And so then you will be ready to do well, to get the highest possible grade for the quiz itself. Okay? So now we got that there. Let's go back again. I remind you that for your written assignments, use that drugs and crime course guide. It is very valuable, gives a lot of information and resources as well. So let's see the assignments once again. Okay, so here's your written project. It's a minimum of 3 pages. Include 3 credible, reliable sources other than your textbook. So if you use your textbook, that means you have to have 4. The textbook and 3 others. Do not use Wikipedia. I think I only had 1 student to use Wikipedia, and I don't even know if it was in this class or not, but in one of my classes, and you get dinged pretty bad because we warn you. Cover page and reference pages do not count as the 3 pages. Do not count. And then it tells you, again, it reminds you about the drugs and crime course guide. So there is a rubric, which I highly recommend. If you click on the assignment, which I will to show you, it shows 2 things. It shows the due date. It says 2 a.m. It doesn't, no, it's not 2 a.m. It's actually 12. It's due by the next day. So it's not 2 a.m. You got to go back and fix that. And then your rubric tells you about the topic, heroin and crime, and the quality and content information. It tells you just what I shared with you a few minutes ago. The information that you need. Minimum 3 pages. And then it talks about using 3 credible resources other than your textbook, and you know not to use Wikipedia in that. And then down here, you make sure you have your citations. APA requires, as I've said over and over again, and I always will repeat it, citations in the body and references at the end. And then it should be with the cover sheet and the reference page. Should be in 12-point Roman in terms of typing. So those are the requirements to get it in on time, all right? And then the only other assignment other than the discussion post Let's go back, come back to it again. Okay, here we go. Is your discussion post. We already know how that works. And then your quiz. Okay, it's 30 minutes, and you'll have 5 minutes letting you know, and so you want to get that done. Okay. Again, the same thing. Going back again, I just want to show you just for a minute. Going back to week 2. Last week you did what is heroin, and you know heroin and crime, and then the discussion post, and then the time quizzes. Okay, so you see that again. So that clarifies what I was talking about a few minutes ago when I said that it's actually a midterm, but in reality, the key thing that you're dealing with here is you're doing the assignments in a progressive manner, if you notice. Heroin and crime. And I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. I'm going to mention to you something that I just read the other day from a local newspaper. So I'm going to give you that. Any questions about any of the assignments for this week? Concerns? Okay, excellent. Okay, good answer. Not yet. Yeah, because it might pop up. And if it does, feel free to type it in even anytime during the lecture here. Or you know what to do after the lecture as far as it's concerned. And if you have, I don't know if you have, but some students have found this out, that they'll send me a question so quickly that they haven't even had a chance to think about it. Says, oh, I found it, and then I'm responding back to them, and then they'll send me back and says, oh, I found it, thank you for that. But make sure that, you know, yep, I sure do. I reply quickly for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't like emails in my my inbox. And then if you text me, I'll get it extremely fast. So if you text me during this session, it'll send me a message that someone texts me, and then I'll look at it and see it even doing then. But anyway, the point of the matter is I communicate quickly, very quickly, because I want you guys to succeed and do well. Okay, so now let's get into the module itself. Look at the lesson content. And so we're going to be dealing with pretty much how crime and these drugs relate, particularly heroin, because there is a very serious opioid epidemic. I'm going to talk about it again in a minute. So policy and social trends, drug use, abuse, addiction, theories of addiction and drug identification, and then you have your course projects in here. So you want to, and then your discussion and your quiz. Okay, so let's talk about drugs in themselves. There have been so many, I should say, attempts by the federal government, the state government, your local government to deal with drugs and how they're abused and used. As a law enforcement person, I attended a seminar last week, and the session I went to on Wednesday, which was after this class, involved how opioid addiction is being dealt with by law enforcement. And one of the things that they talked about constantly was, number one, more education to the law enforcement authorities to try to do what we call, they divert the individuals from the situation where they are drug users and not arresting them, but to get them to even help. There was a chief of police who came in from one of our local towns here, and he shared a program that they had. Let me see, I'm reaching down for my little thing here. I think I still got it right here. What did I do with it? Let's see. Oh, this is here. Here it is right here. Yeah, here it is. And in this particular session, they talked about crime prevention through using the drug treatment. And actually, now I'm looking at my notes here. I think it was Tuesday that I actually talked about this. Let me see. Give me 1 second, because I thought I had it up here. Was that Tuesday or Wednesday that I did that? Okay. Oh, okay. It was Tuesday. I take that back. So I did talk about this last week, about how they were dealing with diversion and dealing with post-overdose and dealing with programs of deflection diversion. Yeah, that's it. And so with this deflection program, rather than to arrest individuals, they were directing them more towards treatment. And I was saying that even those individuals who came in with crack pipes and amounts of drugs and so forth, they're doing things to try to help these individuals. So anyway, but the whole issue here in terms of dealing with drug use and abuse and addiction deals with how they approach it. It says here in our session here, it says that there was a focus on the war on drugs and a crackdown by the different entities, federal, state, and local governments, and providing sentencing, more sentencing for possession of powder, and he said, and crack cocaine. But see, here's the problem with that. The problem with that goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago, and I've said this in other lectures that I did with you in this course, is that the sentences don't help. What's going to help is those individuals, if they receive the help that they're able to get to be freed of the use of this drugs. And remember, I said this before, that until we reach the stage that we start to concentrate and deal with the drug issue as an illness for the people who are addicts and using drugs themselves and taking them and locking them up and releasing them, you got recidivists, and people are going to come back and they'll continue to do the very same things. So that's what it was in the 80s. But it says here in our second paragraph, third paragraph here, actually here, it says attitudes have shifted away from the war on drugs because it really wasn't working. It wasn't doing anything. It was not reducing recidivism, as I said. And there is, and I said this many times, but it says it right here, a current topic of discussion is the connection between drug use, abuse, addiction, and criminal behavior. As I have shared with you, I was a criminal defense lawyer for many years. And I can tell you that if you get to the core of theft, robbery, burglary, even some violent offenses, not counting rape, but most of these offenses, the reason why these take place is because the individuals are trying to get what they need to satisfy that that drug habit that they need, or as we use the term, getting the monkey off your back. Have you ever heard that before? The term get a monkey off your back. You ever heard that? Yeah. And what it really means is that you're a puppet, you're a slave, and you're stuck with this stuff, and that basically, when all sincerity, when you go to the hospital, you go in there for treatment to get well. It's the same thing that we need to do with drug addiction, is to be able to deal with individuals who are involved in these crimes and focus on not the crime, but the cause and effect of the crime. What caused them? And I just said a few minutes ago, it is drugs. And so it says, thus, if we identify the underlying reasons why a person uses or abuses drugs, perhaps we can then also reduce the crime-related criminal behavior. Duh. Really? No kidding. Of course. You know, and so that's going to the heart of the matter. So they talk about these different models in here. The choice, disease, and self-medication model. That the choice model is set up where you analyze the person and what they choose to use, it says, and then can simply choose to stop using it. Let me say this. That is a difficult thing, because you should be aware that most people who are on drugs, their free will is gone, or it's so diminished that they have to struggle between a desire to get off and then the body's craving for them to satisfy it. And so therefore, that it's problematic. It is problematic. And so therefore, the definition of the choice model believes that people can choose to use a substance and therefore can simply choose to stop using it. I don't think so. What do you think? Do you think that makes? Do you think that really works? You think they can really just choose and say I'm stopping just like that? Yes, that's true. And you know, there are people that I've run into, but these are like far and few in between. Yeah, they did. You're absolutely right. The choice that they had was do it or not do it. But here's the point. Once you start down it, you spiral and you increase. You know, the way I learned about it in the police academy many years ago was that individuals will try something different or to get in with the crowd, their peers. They don't want to be left out. They don't want to be looked at as oddball, you know. Yeah, and not recognizing what it is. Let me say this. This is a statement. Drugs will take you to a place that you don't want to go, further than you want to go, and keep you there longer than you intend to stay. Does that sound accurate? Yeah. And so as a result of that, it exactly begs the question, and point of it is that, you know, you're done. Your whole life begins to change. You're as an individual. You become a thief, a liar, and sometimes even result in a murderer. Your life becomes short. Your health diminishes. Your hygiene diminishes and stuff like that. So it's problematic. It's problematic. So I'm not a fan of this first, the choice model. The self-medication model says that people use legal and illegal substances to run away from things, you know, and such as it keeps them from being anxious, depressed, or other things. And the problem with that position is that, just like alcoholics, you hear people use the term, you crawl into the bottle. You don't physically crawl into the bottle, But what it's really saying is that you utilize the substance to take your mind off of things, and you result in doing that by getting what they call a high, and the high makes you oblivious to what's happening. But how many know that there's a crash that comes after that? And when that crash comes about, you are unhappy. You might even be angry with yourself, and you're also injuring yourself. But then what do you do next? Here's what we learned in the academy. Whatever high you achieve with that first time, you want to not get that. You want to go up. You want to keep getting up, 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 getting higher and higher and higher. And how do you reach that stage? Well, I mean, what do you end up doing to climb higher? What do people, what would you say drug users do to increase their high? Yep, that's it. Increase it with more and the more. And what does it ultimately result in for them? Either, yes, there we go. That's the ultimate. And overdose, exactly. That is exactly it. And or addiction. So you've gone deeper into the process, and so as a result, you totally change. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I don't hold those people responsible for their crimes on a serious nature. But yeah, people have to serve time, but we still have to reach the stage to this next one, which is my favorite model, and that is the disease model. The idea that is a result of chemical or biological issue. Says that the theory is that punishing people for drug-related crimes without addressing the underlying reasons for drug use or addiction will not likely change the pattern of criminal behavior. Well, that's what I just said a little earlier. And so this is a statement of fact that many health authorities, medical professionals advocate that the treatment should be part of any sentence. That's what I was talking about earlier when I started talking about the diversion plans that we discussed from that seminar I went to last week. And it was awesome for me because I was many years as a lawyer dealing with individuals who were substance abusers who ended up going to drug court, and the court would, mandate those individuals having to go through certain types of treatment. But here, with this diversion program and with the other program that I was talking about that was happening here with the law enforcement officers of this town, and that the chief presenting it, it is awesome to recognize that what they choose to do in order to combat the opioid crisis, that's the title of the police intervention to combat the opioid crisis, dealing with deflection. And what deflection, as I said, involves is rather than taking these individuals to court, getting them a record, but to help these individuals in terms of that. Let me read this to you because that's what it says in our little pamphlet here that I had from the session. It says, a crisis of this magnitude requires innovative and multiple intervention points, including post-overdose, providing Noxolone and the drugs that people take to arrest the action of the drugs, as a part of a comprehensive strategy to reduce opioid dependency and aid in the treatment and recovery from opioid use disorders. It says that this presentation, which was a session I attended, will discuss different programs, their efficacy and potential barriers and challenges. The session will provide examples from the field and share about programs who have had success in getting an individual to enter treatment and reducing overdose death. Awesome session. And I talked about that in detail last week. But that goes with the disease model. And when you hear a disease model of addiction, what we're saying is we recognize it's an illness, people, and that we don't arrest people and lock them up. They come in and says, you got the flu. Okay, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You know, we're going to take your fingerprints, mugshot, and all of that. They don't do that. They start to treat and get you healed. Well, that's the same thing that the disease model and this program I was advocating here that is awesome and exciting to work on. And I'm getting some. We got a state statute in Illinois that was passed to deal with this very issue that I was talking about. And what it does is the statute encourages local authorities to set up agencies and opportunities to help these individuals. Just for your reference, it doesn't matter what state you're in, you could Google and go to Illinois SB 3023. That's it, and it talks about the Community Law Enforcement Partnership for Deflection and Substance Use Disorder Treatment Act. That's the name of the law. And in the law, it talks about, and what is a deflection program? It says here that police officers are usually on the front line of opioid crisis, traditionally have two choices when faced with someone they believe may have a substance use disorder: to arrest them or not to arrest. Deflection programs, listen to this, provide a third option: not arrest or not to arrest, but to connect the people right away. Right away. Do not go to jail. It's like Monopoly. Go to get help with community-based organizations, hospitals, doctors. And so to connect these people with these substance abuse services that address their underlying substance abuse problem. That is what I call thumbs up, because of the fact that so this legislation itself says that it's a roadmap to encourage partnership in those kind of things. And if this could catch, and it says Illinois, hey, is the first state in the nation to consider deflection legislation this comprehensive. So you look at it. You look at it. I invite you. Illinois SB, the letter S. Okay, let me see that happen so quickly. Let me see if I can catch the chat here, what you said. If there is a victim that results from the crime, they commit that choice, do we have a law enforcement to make that decision? Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal, and the way this whole thing is to operate is to take these individuals when they commit offenses, not violent offenses, but offenses like, for example, they'll probably have to pay them back and those kinds of things, but they don't get a record. But what they do is they get these people to a point where if you help them in this situation, that it will decrease. First of all, one of the main things that it's trying to do is decrease the opioid deaths, because what eventually happens to all of these criminals is that they'll end up finding themselves in an OD stage. The Illinois Public Health in a study said regarding opioid deaths in Illinois, the number of opioid overdose deaths from opioid increased by 82% in just the last 3 years. Opioid drug overdoses killed 45% more people, listen to me, here it is, than homicides. That's like what? Opioid drug overdoses killed 25% more people than motor vehicle crashes. Opioid drug killed more people than people who died due to all the gun-related causes, including homicide, suicide, and accidental shooting. Opioid overdoses are in urban, suburban, and rural area. So what is that saying? It's not just based on the cities. it's based on small town communities and everything. And so if you might take a look at that. Take a look at that. You might be able to incorporate it in some of your written assignments. Illinois SB 3023. And you know, I can't tell you this, but I'm looking at the back of the slip that they gave us to go look at the law, and they list all the law enforcement departments that are listed here. And these are police departments across the state of Illinois. The Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, the Illinois Drug Enforcement Officers Association, Illinois Sheriff's Association. And then it talks about the various hospitals that are also involved, you know, as well. AMITA Health Group, Advocate Health Group is involved, and other Present Help. These are health groups that are in our jurisdiction here. And so my point being is that as we deal with this disease model, this is something that deals with the situation. We're going to talk about this coming along in the last module in more detail. You're going to see something that's going to blow you away, and I'm going to reserve it until we get there. Here's an article down here that talks about substance abuse and mental illness. There is also a correlation between crime and mental illness. Same thing. We must begin to recognize that the reason why a person does something is they don't have to be so mentally ill that it excuses their criminal actions. So that means they're not insane, so they can't use the insanity defense. But what it does say is that there are individuals who do things that you can tell based on what they do that there's some mental illness issues that need to be addressed to help those individuals out of a life of crime. So that's the other part. So now we get to the theories of addiction and drug identification activity. And I don't spend a lot of time going through these, but what I do is they'll say theory that drug abusers can stop or control their use, but choose not to. So which one is that? What theory is that? Nope. We just got through talking about the three. That's moral, but what three models? Okay, we go back up. There they are. Self-medication, choice, or disease. So, theory that drug abusers can stop or control their use, but choose not to. Which one is it? There we go. There we go. So if you type that in, okay, you type choice. It said the answer was behavior or moral. Now, let me explain something to you. You said, didn't you say moral earlier? Didn't you say that? Yes. I understood that because that's in the book. You did the reading, didn't you? I read it, but not this time. I read it before. But my point is that choice actually fits in the context of what you said. So that was good. That was good. That was good. Yes, it encompasses it. There we go. There we go. So anyway, what this does is it takes you back to actually a review of your reading and the stuff here. Theory that drugs directly after the brain chemistry through the effects on the brain, which cause tolerance and withdrawal symptoms and produce cravings from the drug and increase the likelihood of relapse. What do you recall from your reading? What do you? Okay, I'm going to put this in here just for the purposes because I can't tell you either because I didn't read it this week, but I do know. So the answer was medical or disease model theory of addiction. So getting back to that, so we're in the same vein, and see these models that I talked about are things that can help you. But this is it was you have a medical disease. And that's what we were talking about. You know, basically, it's a using that word disease that sets it out. Okay, and so I'm not going to do the rest of them. Um, but the theory that certain personality traits or conditions make people more susceptible to drug abuse, and you find all this information in your materials, and it also will help you with your quiz. So when you go in and try to answer these questions, you can even just type in. Um, uh, I don't know, don't recall, and then what it'll do, just put something in there, and it will tell you this. It says you typed, I don't recall. The answer was personality theory of addiction. So you'll find you're studying for it at the same time. You see how this is beneficial and how it takes you back to what you actually read, and also what's in the PowerPoint. You got that? Okay. And so that's what I was trying to show you, how to utilize the things that are in here to help you to prepare. Okay? And those are the things that we have here. And so what I want to do now is ask you, do you have any questions about anything that we've talked about or covered? Okay. All right. So my keyword is SB 3023. That's what I'm looking for. You give me that. SB 3023. And actually, I'm encouraging people to go take a look at it. But SB 3023. So I'm going to adjourn this session, and you're welcome. And have a good week. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. As they say, same time, same bat channel, for some more powerful information about a very serious topic that we need to address in criminal justice for the benefit of our communities and families and friends. I think everybody that I know has someone who has a family member who's been adversely affected by this opioid issue, the crack, cocaine, and marijuana. So this is a great, great topic. And for us who are in criminal justice, we got to move beyond the lock them up and throw away the key deal. As long as they're behind bars, everything's good. No, because they're not going to stay behind bars unless they get a life sentence. And if they're going to be, and most people do come out at some point, we want to address the symptoms, we want to address the issues, and then we say get to the heart of the matter to be able to help to alleviate those individuals in terms of being repeat offenders. So good night.